So I'm very excited to be leading this panel with you guys because it's such an interesting topic, and I'm a CEO myself, and I'm not a coder, but I'm also starting to use it and try to automate as much workflows as possible and make it easy. But your guys' stories is on another scale and level, and that's why I want to tell a little bit the story today, and then we will be talking about your experiences, how you did it. The reason why you three are sitting today here is also because you have somehow similarities in your use cases and what you've done with AI in the last 2 years, I would say. And at the same time, there is some kind of different bets that I would also like to, introduce as a poll into the audience. So yeah, so before I do that, I will start first with Tom. So Tom founded Nine in 1999. He went... he wanted to finance some server space for himself. 27 years later, Nine is one of Switzerland's most respected cloud infrastructure providers. So we just heard about it, but it runs other companies' websites, applications, AI workloads in production every day. Tom himself, he's ETH trained. He never really stopped being an engineer. He still writes his emails in mud, as he's told us, on the terminal in a screen session, and 27 years running. His own words, he might be the last person on earth still doing it. I also believe you might be the last person doing it. So here is the story of Tom and his company, and I want you to really give it a good listen because we will discuss this afterwards a little bit. So what happened is, about a year ago, and please correct me if I don't have the facts right, the billing system at Nine ran on a heavily customized version of Odoo, was about to hit end of life. So then an external agency quoted serious money to port it forward. But then Tom said no. Instead, he sat down with Claude Code, and in 8 weeks, he built a brand new Go API that owns all the billing logic. As a CEO. So it runs on production today, billing real customers across hundreds of products. True?
Yeah, almost.
Almost.
It's a bit optimized.
Okay.
Also, yeah, the Claude wrote it very nicely, so thank you.
And then he handed it to his engineers. And that's what you told me, that's not Claude. You said, so their first reaction was, it's a good proof of concept, but rewrite it in a language we're actually using. So what he did, he then, and I quote, added 213 automated tests and a rose guide so that the engineers could basically tear this code apart and accept it. So please give a warm applause and welcome to Tom. Next to Tom is José Manuel Rodríguez. I hope I pronounced it correctly.
Perfect.
So José founded Paymash in Zurich in 2016. Paymash is the point of sales of a web shop platform that thousands of Swiss small businesses depend on every day. So cafes, retailers, restaurants. If you walked into a Swiss small business this morning and you tapped your card, there is a real chance that you were using Paymash. He spent 10 years building that product. Then, over the last year, he made a decision very few CEOs actually of an established SaaS make. He decided to rewrite the entire 10-year-old code base. Not add AI features on top, not refactor a module, a complete rebuild. New backend, new frontend, new database. With paying customers on the live system the entire year. He just finished his own description of the year, equal parts ambition, chaos, and control risk. Please welcome José on stage with me.
Thank you.
And then we have Stefan with the beautiful blue suits, almost as beautiful as mine. So Stefan has a PhD in distributed system and 25 years in the industry. He's the CTO of Kealu, makers of an enterprise AI agent called Kealu Vectors. Think of Kealu Vector as a virtual team of agents. One plans, another writes code, a third tests it. They argue with each other through what Stefan calls an adversarial feedback loop, and that is how they catch each other's mistakes. And here is the twist. Kealu uses Kealu Vector to build Kealu Vector itself. In the last 6 months, the system shipped 80,000, is that correct? That number, 800,000, sorry, 800,000 lines of audited code. Stefan personally typed 0 of them. But he is not just watching. He commanded the architecture, set the strict boundaries that turn chaotic vibe coding into product-ready software. Please welcome on stage Stefan Birrer from Kealu.
Thank you.
It's too, okay. You tell me if it's better. It's better? Yes. Okay. You hear me, everybody? Perfect. All right, so I told you I'm going to start with a poll before we dive into the conversation. I want to basically ask you, and I want to position these 3 gentlemen with 3 statements, and maybe it's a little bit überspitzt, maybe it's not completely, but just for the sake of the poll, let's say, hands up if you think Stefan's bet that AI writes code end-to-end with minimum or almost no human involved is the future. What is it? 25, 30, 40%? Hands up for José, who sits in the middle of the two. He says AI rebuilds the whole product under controlled risk. Humans steer and review through the migration. So humans are still involved, I would say, in the mid-level. That is the future. Quite less. And then Tom, AI builds the thing, but only with engineers setting up the guardrails, the tests, the reviews, the rose guide, and owning it after the handoff. So AI, I'm just simplifying it now, AI builds together with the engineers team still, and the engineers are owning it, the code. Who believes that's the future? We have, we have a few, I would say 5%. So please remember these answers. I will ask you at the end again. Now, I want to start with an opening question to all of you because you all are founders, CEOs/CTOs that after many, many years went back to sit behind the keyboard and started to code again. What was the trigger for you that specific day you decided to do it instead of just, you know, paying and asking an engineer to do it? Yes.
So for me, I didn't really plan to do so much, also use so much time together with Claude Code. But as you heard, I was triggered because I should have paid a lot of money to this agency again to redo their expensive implementation to the new version of Odoo. And I felt like 2 or 3 years later, we will have the same discussion again, and they want a lot of money again. So I thought, yeah, why not just check if there are other solutions? And at that time in November, where I was a bit late to the party with Claude Code, I tried just with Claude a bit to do some easy, simple Python scripts and try to get a bit of feeling for the API of Odoo. And then I got somehow hooked. I don't know if you know that feeling. It gives a really good feeling to work together with Claude. You do something, and then he asks some things, and then he tells you that you are great or you have a good idea, and you're even better. And then say, oh, okay, yeah, it's because of me. That's so good. And then you stay, and yeah, and then it started, and then you suddenly end up having 50,000 lines of code, and then so okay. How do I tell that the engineers? Yeah.
Okay, what about you, Jose?
Yeah, well, as you said, I mean, we have a 10-year-old system with many, many customers. As with every 10-year-old software, whoever of you has built such a software, we accumulated some technical debt over the years. At the same time, we have the customers who demand from us new features, and our team, and we are not talking about 3, 4 people, we are talking about more than 10 people, is very, very busy right now. So taking this and then discovering that all of a sudden I had a new employee, an employee that I could do requirements engineering, I could write code, I could debug code, I could do software testing with this new employee. I could go into production with this new employee. I could let him analyze logs and so on. The whole spectrum of software engineering. And this employee knows almost everything and is every time is available 24/7. That for me was a game changer where I realized, okay, that's the way to go. And with this new employee, I decided to do it myself. This is this top-down approach that was already mentioned today, which I'm a strong believer in it. I decided to do it myself because until recently I was really heading a team, and now I was able to start doing it myself again, which was impossible. For this, I would have needed a team for sure. And then I took this road 1 year ago. I'm almost finished, so it's really I'm really happy with the outcome, and I hope that this will bring us make us faster and let us deliver new features much better in a better quality.
Very cool. So what about you, Stefan? What was for you the trigger, or do you remember if it was like something specific that happened or a specific thought that you went through when you decided to do it yourself?
Yeah, I think, the most basic one is need drives kind of the action. I used AI before for integration in the IDs and stuff and code reusers, but it was not really at that point ready to full code. But we started our new business, Kealu, and we were working on a prototype. So the business at that point was about kernel native technology, which is something that we're actually spinning out now as a separate company, and Kealu will become the agentic workforce. But we had an engineer working on our prototype, and I needed to build a demo so I can actually show it to customers. And we were just in the first months of our fundraising, and we couldn't yet hire another engineer. So I thought, give vibe coding a try. It just timed out perfectly with Opus 4.5 release back then. So that was pretty much the first months where I believe it has become possible to do this type of things at the complexity level. It's a heavy duty video streaming application, and I have decades of experience in how to build this kind of application and how you build video streaming at scale, and for all these protocols. It takes engineers years to learn all these enterprise standards. We had to implement 32. But I took on the vibe coding with Claude quickly, got tired of Claude Code. I could talk for hours about that, but ultimately building a workflow engine that allowed me to implement the standards and get the outcomes that I needed, and confidence that when the test passes that it actually did what I needed it to do.
I will come back to all of you, but I want to start with Tomin 9, the story of what you did and vibe coded basically the billing system on the API on top of Odoo, and then the 213 tests you basically built in the Rose Guide, and a 4-person review for every change. And I want to just know, was that necessary? Why did your engineers request that? Were they protecting their territory or protecting something else?
So this 4 eyes principle, that every line of code that is entered into production is reviewed by someone else, was there since the beginning almost. So they just did what they did.
It was part of the protocol, okay.
And as they first called my 50,000 line of code proof of concept, I was a bit not so happy to say. And it took a bit away my motivation to continue. But then, thankfully, the date of the migration or the switch to the new version came closer. So I took it up again, and we had to find a way together that this new system is kind of accepted by the rest of the company, because this very expensive version of Odoo also the implementation that we did 4 years ago was not accepted by the team. It was called crap, and I didn't want to have the same thing again. So we finally found a very good solution to do that. So we created a new application and then ported step by step from my proof of concept into production, and they could review it. They didn't. I don't think they reviewed every line of code, but they took the help of Claude Code by themselves, and we do it like this, or we did it like this. It's not yet 100% finished, but we are on a good way. And I changed a bit my mind about if it's really important that we check what Claude did, because with this 50,000 of a line of code, I thought, hey, it's running, it's okay. But with the new framework, we have some, how to say that, some configurations inside that make Claude to ask good questions what he did and then what he wants to do. And then if you read these questions, then you think, okay, there are several ways how to do that. And with the first try, he just did what's the fastest thing. And if you imagine building a house on sand or something like that, it feels like the same. And I got convinced by the engineers who gave really good feedback of what Claude built, that I think it's not so bad idea to really look very closely on the architecture level and on the API level what you build. And then if you have some clients consuming your API, there it's not so important that it's very reviewed very deeply, because you can change it later.
Okay, so would you say you moved from 213 tests to what, like 50 or?
The tests are still there, and they save us from regression problems.
Okay.
So to explain, if Claude's hacking something in the code, then my fear is always that he breaks something that doesn't work anymore afterwards. So the tests ensure that the things that are there still work.
Okay, I would like to involve Stefan in this conversation, because so what you're doing with Kealu, there is no human engineers are basically reviewing your code. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So if you would debate now on stage here with Tom, which we had with like very rigorous process of implementing the new API and then making it accept through their engineers with these so many tests and the rose guide, would you say this is a good way to do it, or would you tell him you don't need to do it, just let the AI do the work?
I mean, it's how you do it, not it's the most important part. I think ultimately AI agent, some form of AI agent is like an engineer, depends on the engineer. But, my experience is very quick with AI agent is they can do some things that humans are not capable of, right? There's areas where they outperform like what I could do by margins, 100x. For example, triaging a problem in a distributed system with lots of logs. They can do in 15 minutes what the best engineers maybe can do in a day. And, I manage a lot of engineers, and I also know 90% of the engineers would not be able to get it done in a day. And then typically the problem starts because you forget half of the stuff after one day. So if you don't have enough progress in the time window, it gets very cumbersome to get to the finish line. So there is things that AI agents are so much better at. And fundamentally, we're doing the same thing, right? It's just how do you use the AI agents to do the things that otherwise humans would do, right? I think there is still, a strong focus on behavioral tests that basically describe the behavior of the system that you want. Our system doesn't have 219 tests. It has like 13,000 tests that capture every single behavior. Every single thing that I ask the system to build results in tests being built, so we can prevent regressions. And it will take that further based on, there's agents that are responsible for test planning. So they're not only taking like the simplest version of the behavior that I give them, but really planning them out for all the different scenarios that this may, extend into my expectations, right? So I give I'm also like the coding I'm doing is I'm treating these agents like a human, right? I'm telling them about my intentions of what I want to achieve. They're responsible to come back with a plan to me, the way I had it with my team before. And so I give feedback on the plan, and that then kind of gets approved. Then we go to a test plan, and so on. And it's the same delivery cycle. I think the benefit of the agent is they are tireless, right? They work 24/7. They're never sick. They don't they argue with you, but they also take your word at the end of the day. It's not
The perfect employee, basically.
in some form they are. I mean, obviously, I don't think necessarily the token cost is actually such much an issue for this part. I don't think software development itself is what drives cost. There's a significant cost of drives when you start applying the review cycle and analyzing of large, system log files. That will happen when we run CI builds with 10,000 tests and 4 different platforms, and then you're going to have to analyze like a test failure. These things add up a lot of token usage, but like feature development itself is very economical compared to what humans would cost in our world. So, but yeah, I mean, it's somewhat very similar, right? It's just leveraging AI in a way that we can actually replace and enhance the users, the humans that guide it.
Very nice. I would also like to ask you, Jose, because you've also rebuilt your entire system, within a year, something that was running for such a long time and still running. Where in your rebuild did you actively take out the humans? Because just to play what he said, the agents and AI is doing it better.
Well, I didn't take out the humans, but I reduced them, that's true. And I must say here, I'm more a little bit on the side of Stefan. By the way, our system has about 7,000 tests and growing much more. Stefan said that AI is much better at processing large volumes. I would say AI is also much better than we humans are at doing something consistent. I'm a big fan of spec-driven development and test-driven development. A huge fan through all my software engineering career. But at the same time, I must admit that I also failed at both many, many times. And I saw many, many projects where documentation was incomplete, missing, or outdated. Test coverage was not there where it should be. And here I must say, either call it good or bad for us humans, AI is much, much better at this. I mean, I do test-driven development with Claude Code now, and it produces this 7,000 tests and counting, and I have almost no regression. This is really, really cool. I have a test, I have almost as much documentation as I have lines of code. Imagine this. And I also have I even have more lines of test code than real code. I've never seen a project like this. I have a code coverage of 90%, also something unheard of. So this is really possible if you use tools like Claude Code, these AI coding agents.
Amazing. So I want to stay here a little bit and talk about Paymash. So let's reflect. There is a version of you who started Paymash in 2016. And then there is a version sitting here today who just spent a year rebuilding it with AI. What is the one thing the 2026 version of you knows today? It's my favorite question, that the 2016 version of you refused to believe.
Well, 2016, I would have never thought that code by itself becomes so unimportant. I don't know how to call it. When I decided 1 year ago to do this new project, so that you know a little bit my history, I'm a software developer for over 30 years. I'm a Java version 1 developer. I started with Java when Java was practically born and stayed with Java. I'm a backend developer by heart. For me, it would be the most natural thing to develop this new system with Java code. Instead, I did my research and came up with a complete different stack based on TypeScript, a Node backend, a React frontend, all things that I have no experience with it. The reason why I did this is, first of all, of course, I saw the potential behind these technologies. I mean, I heard of them, but I didn't use them myself. But I know they were very capable for what I was intending to do. And then the even more important thing, I analyzed the different LLMs that were on the market, and I saw that the most experience and the most help that it can give is with this programming language and with this framework. And that was for me also part of the decision why I went this way. And yeah, I didn't regret it. I mean, yeah, it's for me it was mind blowing.
For me as well, a lot what's happening is mind-blowing right now. I would like to revert back to you, Tom. So here is a description of a scenario, and that's how I picture it when you basically did what you did. It's 11 p.m. in your mud session, you're alone, you're rebuilding your billing system. And you know, the question was, why have you not asked any of the engineers at night to do that with Claude Code? Why did you have to do it yourself?
Yeah, that's what I said in the beginning. It was like how to say that, a love-driven approach. So I was really I got addicted to it. I really loved to work with Claude. So I came not to the idea to give that to an engineer. It was more like I want to do it because it's cool.
Okay.
And yeah, after over 25 years of entrepreneurship, I once did the mistake that I gave away the cool stuff to the engineers, and then they did some things or asked me why what I do, why I do that, and they should do that. And today I don't care what they say, because some years later they leave and do something else, and I stayed. So I have to take care of everything, and I have to take responsibility of everything, so that. So I give myself the freedom to do what I want.
Makes sense. Now I want to speak to Stefan again. So you spent 25 years becoming the kind of engineer whose value was writing code. Then you build a company where that skill is irrelevant because you have the agents, you have AI doing that. What did you have to stop believing about? Is a little bit philosophical, but about yourself to make that work actually, and to make Kealu work.
Yeah, I think this is the core problem at the identity crisis for every engineer, right? I have to say, like, for me, it was not so big a problem because I was a builder. I built things, I built systems. Writing code was a necessity. I was very happy to get rid of writing code immediately. I actually turns out it's not something that I really enjoyed of the part, and in part actually it's probably because I could think faster than I can type. So for me to build the things that I wanted to build was often the drag was just to write it, right? I could think through what all needs to be built, and it would take nights to build it. And so that fall away with this agentic coding. So it truly started to enable me to move into just what I imagine needs to be built and give out the orders for that to be built. With human teams, they would be overwhelmed as well from just the sheer volume, and with agentic agents, you know, this is a true problem that you have with when you build teams. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily agree with the conclusion, but it is a problem, right? So you build a company, you hire people, you want to empower them, you want to give them the biggest opportunity because that's the only way that this could become true. But many will disappoint you, and so you will be holding the bag again and having to fix it at the end of the day. That's true too. So if with teams, right, like building complex software, you know, not every, like when you're a founder, you're there from day one. You know everything at the back of your pocket. You bring in new people. They get excited about something. They may not necessarily understand what you have. They're building new things, so you end up with a lot of different architecture. I developed techniques about solving that, and now I'm using the same techniques that I used with human teams to have them not do that. I use that on agents to have them not do that because they love to do that too, right? They're no different than humans in any aspect. In terms of, you know, how they do software, if it's complete or not, taking the shortcut if they can, if you're not watching. All these things that humans do are trained into the data sets, and the agents will do it too. So for me, it has not really be a kind of a difference of how I approach this. Then with teams, it just gave me the power to now command a team of 10 without rest, without having to worry about how they feel about when I tell them like that's not a good idea and we should do it the other way. So it simplified some things. So for me, it was kind of a little bit a revelation and a empowerment that happened where I felt like I can get to a speed and to an agency to build things at the rate that I wasn't able to do before with human teams.
Very good. I'm getting signs that we have to wrap it up. So we have a few minutes, not many minutes left, but I would just, 3 minutes, okay. Look a little bit in the future now, because we've spoken about all the use cases from the past, and I want to speak with you because you're the best people to speak that about the role of engineers and how this is shifting. With you, Jose, you are hiring also engineers for Paymash today. Would you hire the same kind of person you hired in 2018?
No, definitely not. I mean, in 2018, I hired a backend developer, a front-end specialist. And today, I would hire a person who is open, first of all, who is open to work with AI agentic coding, and who is interested in software engineering. I don't want anymore, let's say, the Angular specialist or the Java specialist. Actually, I don't care that much about the programming language, but it's important that you have some programming experience. But what I care more is that you're really open and that you are interested in the whole software stack, software engineering stack. So from requirements up until going into production and maintenance, that's much more important for me. And I would disagree with this morning. There was a saying that you would only hire senior developers. I mean, I have many of my colleagues. I'm also senior. I have some of them who really said, "Hey, what you're doing, I don't want to do that. I want to stay with my programming language or with my tool or whatever." So I have seniors who really are not open for this. And at the same time, of course, you say juniors who don't have any experience. I would say it was never easier to get experience with these tools. You can let them teach you and explain you everything. So I would say for me in hiring, if it's old or young, it doesn't matter that much, but the person has to be open to work with AI and open for the whole software engineering. Then that's the person I want.
Very good. Tom, also last question to you. So what do you tell a new ETH graduate who walks up to you and asks what to learn?
I think today it's not so much about learning, it's more about trying out. And I would tell him to try out Claude Code, because I regret that I didn't try earlier. I had some friends telling me months before to try it, and I thought, it's a new shit, and then always these recommendations. But everyone here who didn't try Claude Code until today would encourage you to try it out. It's really mind-blowing, and you have to try it to see it, because you will not believe me until you have seen it.
I could not agree more with that. So I have a last closing for all of you, and I want to ask the same question to you. So 5 years from now, what does the word engineer means in your companies? We'll start with you, Stefan.
I think we hit it a couple times today already. I think there is a collapsing of roles. There will be builders, right? And there will be, project management, customer-facing roles, engineering roles, system operation roles folded in under one person. And generally, I think an AI native company will be, having small teams with flat hierarchies, with teams of, less than 10 people that have long, impactful decision horizons, so that they're in charge of the product. They can innovate fast, because we hear this as well about that X, right? So, I mean, I'm trying to create that 100X. And what's going to prevent getting from, 1.5X to 100X, that is not only the tooling, but it's ultimately the structure of the human communication in the team, right? Because if you don't change that, you will never get past 3X. That will be the limiting factors. If you do business just with AI agents doing everything, but do the business the same way and the same organizational structure, we will be limited at 3 to 5x. If you want to get to 100x, it will require a completely new way of how we communicate with each other.
Okay, we're gonna give you one sentence, the word engineer. Can you do the challenge? In 5 years, what does that mean for you in your company?
Well, I'm still a human, but a human with an AI coding agent, definitely.
Okay,
Going from idea to production.
very good. What about you?
I do not know what happens in 4 or 5 years, but I know that we just need to adapt what happens.
All right, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Please give a big applause to the CEOs.